Commander Sarah Chen had always been different. Growing up in a small town in Oregon, she was the girl who climbed the tallest trees, who never backed down from a dare, and who could outshoot most of the boys at the local shooting range by the time she was 14. Her father, a Vietnam veteran, had taught her that respect wasn't given freely, it was earned through action, dedication, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. The Navy had been calling to her since high school. While other girls her age were planning college parties and sorority life, Sarah was studying military history, practicing marksmanship, and preparing her body and mind for what she knew would be the greatest challenge of her life. The day she walked into the Navy recruitment office, the recruiter looked at her with skepticism. A petite Asian-American woman wanting to join the military was one thing, but when she mentioned her interest in special operations, he actually laughed. "Ma'am, maybe you should consider the medical corps or administration," he said, barely looking up from his paperwork. "Special operations is really more suited for, well, different types of people." Sarah smiled politely, thanked him for his time, and walked out. She drove straight to the next recruitment office in the neighboring town. This time, she didn't mention her ultimate goals. She simply enlisted, knowing that actions would speak louder than words ever could. Boot camp was everything she expected and more. The physical demands pushed her body to its limits, but her mind remained sharp and focused. While other recruits complained about the early mornings, the endless push-ups, and the verbal assaults from drill instructors, Sarah thrived. She had prepared for this her entire life. The first real test came during weapons training. Sarah had been careful not to reveal her shooting background, preferring to observe and learn rather than show off. But when it came time for marksmanship qualification, she couldn't hide her natural talent. Shot after shot found its mark with precision that impressed even the most hardened instructors. "Where did you learn to shoot like that, Chen?" Drill instructor Rodriguez asked after she achieved a perfect score on her qualification test. "My father taught me, sir," she replied simply. "Your father military?" "Yes, sir. Army Infantry, Vietnam." Rodriguez nodded with newfound respect. "Good man. Keep up the excellent work." As her basic training progressed, Sarah began to stand out not just for her marksmanship, but for her leadership abilities and tactical thinking. She helped struggling recruits improve their performance, often staying late to provide additional coaching. Her bunk was always perfectly made, her uniform always immaculate, and her attitude always positive. It was during an advanced training exercise that she first caught the attention of Special Operations Command. The scenario involved a simulated hostage rescue in an urban environment. Sarah's unit was tasked with neutralizing threats while minimizing civilian casualties. As the squad's designated marksman, she found herself in a challenging position, multiple targets at varying distances, with innocent bystanders creating complex firing solutions. The exercise began at dawn. Sarah had spent the previous night studying the mock-up building layout, calculating angles and distances, and preparing her equipment. When the signal came to begin, her team moved with practiced precision. Sarah took her position on a rooftop overlooking the target building, her rifle steady despite the early morning wind. Through her scope, she could see the exercise controllers had created a scenario that would challenge even experienced snipers. The terrorists were positioned in ways that required extremely precise shots to avoid hitting the hostages. Other marksmen in similar exercises had typically taken several minutes to engage each target safely. Sarah's first shot rang out within 30 seconds of taking position. Clean hit. The target dropped immediately. Her second shot followed 15 seconds later. Another perfect hit. In less than 2 minutes, she had eliminated all designated targets with zero collateral damage, a performance that typically took even special operations snipers 5 to 10 minutes to complete. The exercise controllers initially thought there had been a malfunction with the simulation equipment. When they realized that one recruit had single-handedly completed the entire marksmanship portion of the exercise in record time, word quickly spread through the training command. Captain Williams, a Navy SEAL who was observing the exercise, approached Sarah as she was cleaning her rifle after the drill. "Outstanding shooting, sailor," he said. "How long have you been in the service?" 3 months, sir," Sarah replied, continuing to methodically clean her weapon. 3 months? Williams looked surprised. "What's your background? Previous military experience? Law enforcement?" No, sir. Just grew up shooting with my father. William studied her for a moment. Sarah was small in stature, maybe 5 feet 4 inches and 125 pounds, but there was something in her eyes that spoke of determination and capability beyond her years. Chen, right? He asked, checking his roster. Yes, sir. I'm going to be honest with you. What you just did in there, that's special operations level performance. Have you given any thought to challenging yourself beyond regular Navy service? Sarah had been waiting for this moment, but she kept her expression neutral. I'm committed to serving wherever the Navy needs me most, sir. William smiled. He recognized the diplomatic answer, but he also heard the underlying ambition. The Navy has some very specialized programs for sailors with exceptional abilities. If you're interested in pushing yourself to the absolute limit, there might be opportunities for someone with your skills. I'm always interested in improving myself and serving my country to the best of my abilities, sir. Good answer. I'll be in touch. Over the next several weeks, Sarah noticed that her training began to include additional elements that weren't part of the standard curriculum. Extended physical fitness sessions, advanced tactical scenarios, and psychological evaluations became routine. She approached each new challenge with the same methodical preparation and flawless execution that had become her trademark. The invitation came 3 months later. Sarah was called into Captain Williams' office, where she found him sitting across from a woman she didn't recognize, a commander with an impressive array of ribbons and decorations on her uniform. Chen, this is Commander Martinez from Special Operations Command, Williams said. She has a proposition for you. Commander Martinez leaned forward. Sailor, your performance during training has been exceptional. Your marksmanship scores are in the top 1% of all Navy personnel, your physical fitness scores are outstanding, and your psychological evaluations indicate you have the mental fortitude required for extremely demanding assignments. Sarah listened carefully, maintaining her professional composure despite her racing heart. We'd like to offer you the opportunity to attempt special operations training, Martinez continued. I'll be completely honest with you. The failure rate is extremely high, even for candidates with your qualifications. The physical demands are severe, the mental stress is designed to break people, and the training will push you beyond anything you've experienced in your life. May I ask what specific program you're referring to, ma'am? Martinez and Williams exchanged a glance. SEAL training, Chen. We think you might have what it takes to become one of the first women to successfully complete the program. The room fell silent. Sarah had dreamed of this opportunity since she was a teenager, but hearing it spoken aloud made it feel both more real and more daunting than she had ever imagined. The program is voluntary, Williams added. If you accept, you'll begin with a specialized pre-training course designed to prepare candidates for the extreme physical and mental demands. Even that preliminary training has a high washout rate. Sarah thought of her father, of the recruiter who had laughed at her ambitions, of every person who had ever suggested she should set her sights lower. She thought of the responsibility that would come with success, and the significance of potentially breaking barriers that had never been broken before. When would training begin, ma'am? She asked. Martinez smiled. 2 weeks. Are you interested? Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of final preparations. Sarah increased her already intense physical training regimen, spending hours each day running, swimming, and practicing with various weapons systems. She studied everything she could find about SEAL training, though she knew that no amount of reading could truly prepare her for what lay ahead. Her fellow sailors reacted to the news with a mixture of admiration and skepticism. Some were genuinely supportive, recognizing her exceptional abilities and wishing her success. Others were more doubtful, questioning whether a woman could handle the legendary brutality of SEAL training. You know they're going to try to break you, right? Said Petty Officer Johnson, one of the more vocal skeptics. They're going to push you harder than any woman has ever been pushed, just to prove you don't belong there. Good, Sarah replied simply. I prefer to be underestimated. The night before she was scheduled to report for pre-SEAL training, Sarah called her father. He listened quietly as she explained the opportunity she had been given and the challenges that lay ahead. I'm proud of you already, he said when she finished. Not because of what you might accomplish, but because of who you've become. You've got the heart of a warrior, Sarah. Trust in your training, trust in yourself, and remember that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of fear. Thanks, Dad. I won't let you down. You couldn't if you tried, kiddo. Go show them what Chen family determination looks like. Sarah reported to the Special Operations Training Center at 0500 hours the following Monday. She was part of a class of 40 candidates, and as expected, she was the only woman. The other candidates ranged from experienced sailors looking to transition into special operations to fresh recruits who had shown exceptional promise during basic training. The lead instructor was a Master Chief Petty Officer named Davidson, a 25-year Navy veteran with multiple combat deployments and a reputation for being absolutely uncompromising in his standards. His opening address to the candidates was direct and sobering. Ladies and gentlemen, you are here because someone believes you might have what it takes to become a Navy SEAL. I am here to determine whether that belief is justified or misguided. Over the next 12 weeks, you will be tested in ways you cannot imagine. Some of you will quit. Some of you will be injured. Some of you will fail to meet our standards. A very few of you might succeed. His eyes scanned the assembled candidates, pausing briefly on Sarah before continuing. This program does not care about your gender, your race, your background, or your previous accomplishments. It cares only about results. You will succeed or fail based entirely on your performance. There are no participation trophies in special operations. The first week was designed to establish baseline fitness levels and begin the process of mental conditioning. Sarah found herself waking at 0430 for a 5-mile run, followed by calisthenics, swimming, weapons training, and tactical instruction. The days were long, the physical demands significant, and the pace relentless. By the end of the first week, 3 candidates had already dropped out. Sarah remained strong, but she could feel the cumulative effects of the training beginning to wear on her body. Her muscles ached constantly. She was perpetually tired, and the instructors seemed to take particular pleasure in finding new ways to challenge the candidates. It was during the second week that she first encountered real hostility from some of her fellow candidates. The stress of training was beginning to affect everyone, and some of the men began to express resentment about having a woman in their class. "This is bullshit," she overheard one candidate saying to another during a brief rest period. "They're going to lower the standards for her, and then we'll all have to pretend like she earned her spot. She's going to get someone killed when she can't keep up," another added. Sarah said nothing, but she made a mental note of who had spoken. She would let her performance do her talking. The morning of the third week brought what the instructors called Hell Week, though Sarah quickly learned this was just a preview of what was to come. The real Hell Week wouldn't arrive until later in training, but this preliminary version was designed to separate those who were serious from those who were just curious about their limits. Master Chief Davidson gathered the remaining 37 candidates at 0400 hours on the beach. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly before them, its waves crashing against the shore in the pre-dawn darkness. The air was cold, and most candidates were already shivering before the exercise even began. "Today we find out who wants to be here and who just thinks they want to be here," Davidson announced. "You will spend the next 6 hours in and out of that water. You will carry boats, you will run, you will do calisthenics, and you will do it all while wet, cold, and miserable. At any point, you can ring the bell over there and go back to your warm bed and regular Navy duty. No judgment, no consequences. But if you stay, you'd better be prepared to give me everything you've got." Sarah looked at the brass bell hanging from a post about 50 yards away. Already, she could see some candidates glancing at it. Longingly, she turned her attention back to Davidson and waited for instructions. The first evolution involved carrying inflatable boats from the beach to a checkpoint about a mile inland, then back to the water. The boats were heavy and awkward, requiring teams of 6 candidates to work together. Sarah found herself assigned to a boat with 5 male candidates, including Johnson, one of the men she had heard making disparaging comments about her presence. "Great," Johnson muttered as they lifted the boat. "This is going to slow us down." "Only if you keep talking instead of lifting," Sarah replied evenly. The run began, and immediately Sarah could feel the other candidates testing her. They moved faster than necessary, clearly trying to see if she could keep up. Sarah adjusted her position under the boat to maximize her leverage and settled into the rhythm. When they reached the checkpoint and turned around, she was breathing hard but keeping pace. Halfway back to the beach, one of the other candidates, a larger man named Rodriguez, began to struggle. His breathing became labored, and his grip on the boat began to slip. Sarah immediately adjusted her position to compensate for his weakening contribution. "Rodriguez, you okay?" she called out. "I'm fine," he gasped. But clearly he wasn't. Sarah made a quick decision. "Johnson, switch positions with Rodriguez. Rodriguez, take Johnson's spot where there's less weight distribution. I don't need advice from Johnson started." "Do it!" interrupted another team member, Davis. "She's right. Rodriguez is about to drop." They made the switch without stopping, and immediately the boat became more manageable. Rodriguez recovered his strength, and they finished the evolution in 4th place overall. A solid performance for a team that had nearly fallen apart. Master Chief Davidson watched the exchange with interest but said nothing. He had seen many candidates over the years, and he had learned to pay attention to how people performed under pressure. Leadership often emerged in unexpected ways and from unexpected people. The water evolutions began immediately after the boat run. Candidates were required to enter the surf, lie down in the sand as waves crashed over them, then perform various calisthenics while soaked and covered in sand. The water was shockingly cold, and within minutes most candidates were shivering uncontrollably. Sarah had prepared for this. During her pre-training preparation, she had regularly taken ice baths and cold showers, conditioning her body to function despite temperature extremes. While other candidates struggled with the cold, she focused on maintaining proper form during the exercises. "Chen!" Davidson called out as she completed a set of push-ups in the surf. "Are you comfortable?" It was a trap question, and Sarah knew it. Admitting comfort would suggest the training wasn't challenging enough. Complaining would suggest weakness. "I'm exactly where I need to be, Master Chief," she responded. Davidson smiled slightly. "Good answer." The day continued with a series of increasingly difficult evolutions. Beach runs, obstacle courses, more surf torture, and combat swimming exercises. By hour 4, 12 candidates had dropped out. By hour 5, 3 more had quit. Sarah remained strong, though she could feel her energy reserves depleting. The final evolution of the day was a timed swim in rough surf conditions. Candidates had to swim a specific course marked by buoys, with failing to meet the time standard resulting in immediate dismissal from the program. The water was choppy, visibility was poor, and the current was strong. Sarah entered the water with the confidence born of thousands of hours of swimming practice. She had been a competitive swimmer in high school and had maintained her water skills throughout her Navy career. As she began to stroke through the waves, she quickly realized that this was different from any swimming she had done before. The combination of cold water, heavy surf, and extreme fatigue made every stroke a struggle. Halfway through the course, she could see several candidates falling behind the required pace. The instructors were following in boats, ready to pull out anyone who couldn't continue or who exceeded the time limit. Sarah focused on her technique, remembering her father's advice about breaking big challenges into smaller, manageable pieces. Instead of thinking about the entire swim, she focused on reaching the next buoy, then the next one, then the next. With 200 meters to go, she found herself swimming alongside Johnson, the candidate who had questioned her presence in the program. Both of them were struggling against the current, but both were also determined to finish within the time limit. "Come on, Chen," Johnson called out between strokes. "We've got this." Sarah was surprised by the encouragement, but she didn't have energy to spare for conversation. She simply nodded and pushed harder through the final stretch. They both touched the finish marker with seconds to spare. As they treaded water waiting for pickup, Johnson looked at her with something approaching respect. "You're tougher than I gave you credit for," he admitted. "I'm exactly as tough as I need to be," Sarah replied. That evening, as candidates collapsed into their bunks after 18 hours of continuous training, word spread through the barracks about Sarah's performance. She had not only kept up with the men, but she had performed better than many of them. More importantly, she had done so without complaining, without asking for special accommodation, and without drawing attention to herself beyond her performance. Master Chief Davidson reviewed the day's results with his fellow instructors. Out of the original 40 candidates, only 22 remained. Sarah's scores placed her in the top 5 performers across all evolutions. "What's your assessment of Chen?" asked Lieutenant Commander Torres. the program's executive officer. She's got what it takes physically, Davidson replied. But the real test is going to be how she handles leadership scenarios and how the team dynamics develop as training gets more intense. Any concerns? Some about how the other candidates will react as she continues to excel. Group dynamics can make or break individual candidates, especially when you're dealing with people who aren't used to being outperformed by someone they underestimated. Torres nodded. Keep a close eye on it. We need team players, not individual superstars. The fourth week brought weapons training and small unit tactics. Sarah's marksmanship skills immediately set her apart from the other candidates. During rifle qualification, she achieved scores that impressed even the instructors. But more importantly, she began to demonstrate tactical thinking and situational awareness that suggested natural leadership ability. During a simulated patrol exercise, Sarah's team was tasked with moving through hostile territory to reach an observation post. She was designated as the team's second-in-command, with Davis serving as team leader. The scenario called for the team to avoid enemy contact while gathering intelligence on opposing forces. 20 minutes into the exercise, Davis made a tactical error that would have exposed the team to enemy fire. Sarah immediately recognized the problem and quietly suggested an alternative approach. Davis, dealing with the stress of leadership and the complexity of the scenario, initially resisted her input. "I've got this under control, Chen," he said tersely. "Roger that," Sarah replied, but she began positioning herself to respond if the situation deteriorated. Within minutes, the exercise controllers indicated that Davis's approach had resulted in the team being spotted by enemy forces. Simulated gunfire erupted around them, and Davis froze, overwhelmed by the rapidly changing situation. Sarah didn't hesitate. "Davis is hit," she called out, taking command of the scenario. "Johnson, Rodriguez, establish a base of fire. Martinez, Torres, move to that cover and establish overwatch. We're going to bound back to the rally point." Her commands were clear, confident, and tactically sound. The team responded immediately, executing a textbook withdrawal under fire. Within minutes, they had successfully disengaged from enemy contact and reached safety. The exercise controllers stopped the scenario to debrief the team's performance. Instructor Petty Officer Williams, who had been observing the evolution, addressed Sarah directly. "Chen, explain your decision-making process when you assumed command." Sarah stood at attention. "Petty Officer Williams, when the team leader became a casualty, someone needed to take charge immediately. The tactical situation required quick decision-making to prevent further casualties and mission failure. I assessed our position, identified available cover and concealment, and implemented a withdrawal plan that maximized our security while preserving mission capability."
"And your authority to assume command?" "In the absence of designated leadership and in a tactical situation, the most qualified available person must take charge to ensure team survival and mission success. Personal considerations are secondary to operational requirements."
Williams nodded approvingly. "Good answer. Davis, what's your assessment of Chen's performance?" Davis, still rattled by his own failure, struggled with his response. She did what needed to be done. Her tactics were solid. "And your willingness to follow her lead in a real-world scenario?" Davis looked around at his teammates, all of whom were looking at him expectantly. "Absolutely. She kept us alive." That evening, Sarah found herself approached by several of her fellow candidates. The dynamic in the team had shifted subtly but significantly. Where there had once been skepticism about her abilities, there was now genuine respect. "Hey, Chen," Martinez said as she was preparing her equipment for the next day's training. "I wanted to thank you for what you did today. Davis is a good guy, but when things got complicated, he lost it. You stepped up when it mattered. Any of you would have done the same thing," Sarah replied. "Maybe. But you did it, and you did it right. That matters." Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "My older brother is a Marine. He told me that in combat, you don't care about anything except competence. Can the person next to you do their job when things go bad? Today, you proved you can." Sarah appreciated the recognition, but she also understood that this was only the beginning. As training progressed and the challenges became more severe, team cohesion would become even more critical. She had proven she could perform individually, and she had proven she could lead when necessary. But the real test would be whether she could maintain these standards as physical and mental stress increased. The following week brought combat diving training. Candidates learned to use closed-circuit breathing apparatus that left no bubbles, allowing for covert underwater operations. The training was technically complex and physically demanding, requiring candidates to maintain precise buoyancy control while navigating underwater obstacle courses. Sarah's swimming background gave her an advantage in the water, but the technical aspects of combat diving required careful study and practice. She spent extra hours learning the equipment, practicing emergency procedures, and developing the muscle memory necessary for underwater operations. During one particularly challenging evolution, candidates were required to navigate an underwater course while their masks were periodically removed by instructors, simulating equipment failure. The exercise was designed to test composure under stress and the ability to perform emergency procedures while experiencing the disorientation and panic that comes with being unable to breathe underwater. When Sarah's turn came, she entered the water with quiet confidence. The course was laid out 30 feet below the surface, requiring her to swim through a series of obstacles while maintaining precise depth control. Halfway through, an instructor approached and removed her mask, leaving her temporarily unable to see or breathe. Instead of panicking, Sarah immediately implemented the emergency procedures she had practiced. She retrieved her backup mask, cleared it of water, and resumed the course without losing her composure. Her performance was flawless, completing the evolution faster than any candidate before her. "Outstanding work, Chen," said Chief Petty Officer Anderson, the diving instructor. "How did you stay so calm when your mask was removed?" "Chief, I prepared for that scenario during practice. When it happened for real, I just executed the procedures I had trained." "Simple as that?" "Yes, Chief. Proper preparation prevents poor performance." Anderson smiled. It was a classic military saying, but Sarah lived it in a way that impressed even experienced instructors. As the weeks progressed, the training became increasingly intense. Sleep deprivation, extreme physical challenges, and constant stress began to wear down even the strongest candidates. Several more dropped out, unable to handle the cumulative effects of the program. Sarah felt the strain as much as anyone, but she had developed coping mechanisms that kept her functioning at a high level. She approached each day methodically, focusing on immediate tasks rather than dwelling on how much training remained. She maintained her equipment meticulously, ate properly when food was available, and used every available minute of rest to recover. More importantly, she had become a stabilizing influence on her team. When other candidates began to crack under pressure, she provided steady leadership and encouragement. When technical problems arose, she helped solve them. When team dynamics became tense, she mediated conflicts and kept everyone focused on the mission. It was during the 8th week of training that she faced her greatest challenge yet, not from the instructors, but from her fellow candidate. The stress of training had been building for weeks, and some candidates were looking for someone to blame for their struggles. Despite her consistently excellent performance, or perhaps because of it, Sarah became a target for resentment from a small group of candidates who were struggling with the program. The confrontation came on a Friday evening after a particularly brutal week of training. Sarah was in the armory, meticulously cleaning her rifle, after a long day of live-fire exercises, when 3 candidates approached her. She recognized them immediately: Thompson, Williams, and Baker, 3 men who had been struggling throughout the program, and who had been among the most vocal critics of women in special operations. "Chen," Thompson said, his voice carrying barely controlled anger, "we need to talk." Sarah continued cleaning her weapon, not looking up. "What's on your mind, Thompson?" "You know exactly what's on my mind. This whole thing is a setup. They're going easy on you, because you're the poster girl for their diversity program." Sarah finally looked up, her expression calm but alert. She noticed that Williams had positioned himself near the door while Baker had moved to block the other exit. "This wasn't going to be just a conversation. I haven't noticed anyone going easy on me," she replied evenly. "Same PT standards, same time requirements, same evolutions as everyone else." "Bullshit," Williams interjected. "You think we don't see what's happening? They're making sure you succeed so they can prove their point about women in combat. Meanwhile, good men are getting washed out because the standards are being manipulated." Sarah set down her rifle and stood up, keeping her hands visible but ready. "Which good men are you referring to?" The ones who quit during Hell Week? The ones who couldn't make the swim times? Or the ones who failed because they couldn't handle working with a teammate they didn't respect? Baker stepped closer. You think you're better than us? I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, based on my performance. Same as you. The tension in the room was escalating rapidly. Sarah calculated distances, evaluated potential weapons, and prepared for what seemed like an inevitable confrontation. She had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but she had known from the beginning that some candidates would never accept her presence. Here's the thing, Chen, Thompson said, moving closer. Some of us think you need to understand your place. Maybe if you had a little accident, got hurt just enough to wash out, everyone would understand that this program just isn't suitable for women. The threat was explicit now. Sarah's mind immediately shifted into tactical mode. 3 opponents, confined space, multiple potential weapons available. Her training kicked in automatically. Thompson, she said quietly, I'm going to give you one chance to walk away from this. All of you. Right now. Or what? Baker laughed. You're going to report us? Tell the instructors that the mean boys hurt your feelings. Sarah smiled slightly, and something in her expression made all 3 men suddenly uncertain. No. I'm going to put all 3 of you in the hospital. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of the armory door opening. Master Chief Davidson entered, took one look at the situation, and immediately understood what was happening. What's going on here? He asked, his voice carrying the authority of 25 years in the Navy. Just having a conversation, Master Chief, Thompson replied, but his voice had lost its aggressive edge. Davidson looked at each man in turn, then at Sarah. Chen, how would you characterize this conversation? Sarah considered her options. She could report the threat, which would likely result in the 3 men being removed from the program, or she could handle it differently. Master Chief, I believe these candidates have some concerns about training standards and program integrity. I was explaining that all candidates are held to identical standards, and that performance is the only measure that matters. Davidson studied her carefully. He could read between the lines and understood exactly what had been happening. He also recognized that Sarah was choosing not to escalate the situation, a sign of maturity and tactical thinking that impressed him. I see. Gentlemen, I think this conversation is over. Thompson, Williams, Baker, you're on extra duty this weekend. Equipment maintenance and barracks cleaning. Chen, finish up here and get some rest. After the 3 men left, Davidson remained behind. You handled that well, he said. Thank you, Master Chief. They made a threat, didn't they? Sarah met his gaze directly. They expressed some concerns about the program. I addressed those concerns. Davidson nodded. Chen, let me be clear about something. You are here because you earned it. Your performance has been exceptional, and any candidate who can't handle that reality probably doesn't belong in special operations. But you need to understand that this kind of situation might come up again. I understand, Master Chief, and I can handle it. I believe you can. But remember, this program is about building teams. Individual excellence is important, but team cohesion is essential. Sometimes the best warriors are the ones who know when to fight and when to find other solutions. That weekend, while Thompson, Williams, and Baker spent their time scrubbing floors and polishing equipment, Sarah focused on preparing for the upcoming phase of training, advanced combat skills. The program was entering its most challenging period, and she knew that the physical and mental demands would soon escalate beyond anything they had experienced so far. Monday brought the beginning of combat training. Candidates learned close-quarters battle techniques, advanced weapons handling, and small unit tactics. Sarah's natural athleticism and previous training gave her advantages in some areas, but the complexity of special operations procedures required intense focus and practice. During hand-to-hand combat instruction, she found herself paired with Rodriguez, who had become one of her strongest supporters after their boat-carrying evolution weeks earlier. Rodriguez was 6 inches taller and 40 pounds heavier than Sarah, but as they practiced combat techniques, it became clear that size wasn't the only factor that mattered. Chen's got good technique, observed Instructor Petty Officer Martinez as he watched them spar. Rodriguez, you're being too gentle. This isn't dancing class. Chen, show him what happens when someone underestimates your capabilities. Sarah immediately increased her intensity, using leverage and technique to overcome Rodriguez's size advantage. Within seconds, she had him on the ground in a submission hold that would have been incapacitating in a real fight. "Damn," Rodriguez said as she released him. "Where did you learn that?" "My father taught me that being smaller means you have to be smarter and more technical," Sarah replied, helping him to his feet. The demonstration had been watched by the entire class, including Thompson, Williams, and Baker. Sarah noticed their expressions and understood that she had sent a clear message about her capabilities without directly addressing their earlier confrontation. As combat training progressed, the scenarios became increasingly realistic and complex. Candidates were required to plan and execute missions that combined multiple skill sets: combat diving, marksmanship, demolitions, communications, and tactical movement. The margin for error was minimal, and the consequences of mistakes could be severe. During a nighttime reconnaissance mission, Sarah's team was tasked with infiltrating a mock enemy compound, gathering intelligence, and exfiltrating without being detected. The scenario was designed to test their ability to operate as a cohesive unit under realistic combat conditions. Sarah was designated as the team's point man, responsible for navigation and early warning of enemy presence. As they moved through the darkened training area, she used night vision equipment and natural stealth techniques to guide the team toward their objective. 50 meters from the target compound, Sarah detected movement that indicated enemy sentries. She immediately signaled for the team to halt and take cover. Through hand signals, she communicated the location and number of hostile forces, then recommended an alternative approach route that would avoid detection. Davis, who had been designated team leader for this mission, studied Sarah's assessment and agreed with her recommendation. The team adjusted their approach, following Sarah's lead as she guided them through a complex infiltration route that avoided enemy patrols and security positions. The mission was a complete success. They gathered the required intelligence, planted simulated explosive charges on designated targets, and exfiltrated without being detected by opposing forces. During the post-mission debrief, the exercise controllers specifically praised the team's navigation and tactical movement. "Outstanding mission planning and execution," said Lieutenant Commander Torres. "Davis, explain your decision-making process for the infiltration route." Davis glanced at Sarah, then back at Torres. "Sir, I relied heavily on input from my point man. Chen identified enemy positions and recommended an approach that avoided contact while maintaining mission capability. Her assessment was accurate, and her recommended route was tactically sound." "Chen, expand on your thought process." Sarah stood at attention. "Sir, the primary mission was intelligence gathering, which required avoiding enemy contact. When I detected sentries in our planned approach route, I evaluated alternative routes that would provide concealment while maintaining access to our objective. The route I recommended utilized natural terrain features and enemy blind spots to minimize our signature while preserving mission flexibility." Torres nodded approvingly. "Good tactical thinking. This mission succeeded because of careful planning, accurate intelligence assessment, and effective team communication. Well done." That evening, as candidates cleaned their equipment and prepared for the next day's training, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since the confrontation in the armory. Thompson, Williams, and Baker had largely avoided her since that night, but their performance in training had continued to decline. The stress of the program was revealing character flaws that had been hidden earlier, and it was becoming clear that their problems went beyond simple prejudice. Rodriguez approached her as she was organizing her gear. "Chen, I wanted to say something. When this whole thing started, I wasn't sure how having a woman in the class would work out. I didn't have any problem with it, but I wasn't sure if it would create complications." Sarah looked up from her equipment. "And now? Now I know that you're one of the best candidates in this program. You've proven yourself over and over, and anyone who can't see that is letting their prejudices interfere with their judgment. When we get to the teams, I'd be honored to serve with you." "Thanks, Rodriguez. That means a lot. I'm not the only one who feels that way. Most of the guys have figured out that you're here because you belong here. The ones who can't accept that, well, they're not going to make it anyway." Indeed, Thompson was the next to drop out, voluntarily withdrawing from the program during the 10th week after failing to meet performance standards in multiple areas. Williams followed 2 days later, citing injury, though everyone understood that he simply couldn't handle the physical and mental demands of advanced training. Baker lasted another week before washing out during a combat diving evolution that required precise technical skills and absolute composure under stress. His equipment failure was the result of poor preparation and panic under pressure. Exactly the kind of failure that special operations training was designed to identify and eliminate. Their departure left Sarah as one of only 14 candidates remaining from the original 40. The attrition rate was higher than usual, but the quality of the remaining candidates was exceptional. More importantly, the team dynamics had stabilized around mutual respect and shared commitment to excellence. The final phase of training focused on advanced combat scenarios that simulated real-world special operations missions. Candidates were required to plan and execute complex operations that combined all the skills they had learned throughout the program. The scenarios were highly realistic, with sophisticated enemy opposition and time-critical objectives that required flawless execution. Sarah found herself increasingly called upon to take leadership roles in these exercises. Her combination of tactical knowledge, technical skills, and calm decision-making under pressure made her a natural choice for command positions. More importantly, her teammates had complete confidence in her abilities and judgment. During a simulated hostage rescue mission, Sarah was designated as the assault team leader. The scenario involved multiple buildings, unknown enemy strength, and strict rules of engagement designed to minimize civilian casualties. Intelligence was limited, and the tactical situation was fluid and dangerous. Sarah spent hours planning the mission, studying building layouts, evaluating approach routes, and developing contingency plans for various scenarios. She assigned team members to specific roles based on their individual strengths and experience, ensuring that each person could contribute maximally to mission success. The operation began at 030 hours, with Sarah leading a 4-person assault team, while another team established perimeter security. Using night vision equipment and advanced communication systems, she guided her team through a complex approach that avoided enemy detection while positioning them for a coordinated assault. The assault itself was a masterpiece of tactical precision. Sarah's team breached the target building simultaneously from multiple entry points, neutralized enemy forces with precision marksmanship, and secured all hostages without casualties. The entire operation took less than 8 minutes from initiation to completion. During the debrief, the exercise controllers provided detailed analysis of the team's performance. Every aspect of the mission had been executed flawlessly, from initial planning through final exfiltration. "Chen," said Master Chief Davidson, "this was one of the finest tactical operations I've seen in 25 years of special operations. Your planning was thorough, your execution was precise, and your leadership was exemplary. How do you assess your team's performance?" "Master Chief, this mission succeeded because every team member performed their assigned tasks with exceptional skill and professionalism. The success belongs to the team, not to any individual." Davidson smiled. It was exactly the kind of answer he expected from a natural leader who understood that special operations was fundamentally about team performance. As training entered its final weeks, Sarah knew that she was on the verge of achieving something that had never been done before, but she also understood that graduation from this program would only be the beginning of her real challenges. The skills she had learned and the confidence she had built would soon be tested in actual combat operations, where the stakes would be measured in lives rather than training scores. 22 years had passed since Sarah Chen graduated from SEAL training as one of the first women to complete the program. The young sailor who had faced down skeptics and proved herself through pure determination had risen through the ranks with a combination of exceptional performance, natural leadership, and an uncompromising commitment to excellence that had defined her entire career. Now Admiral Chen stood on the deck of the USS Hampton, watching as a new class of SEAL candidates prepared for their final graduation ceremony. She had come a long way from the recruit who had been told to consider the medical corps instead of special operations. Her chest bore the ribbons of multiple combat deployments. Her shoulder insignia marked her as one of the Navy's senior leaders, and her reputation as both warrior and strategist was known throughout the military community. The ceremony was being held on a perfect California morning, with family members and military leadership gathered to honor the newest members of the SEAL community. Admiral Chen had been invited as the keynote speaker, a recognition of her historic role in breaking barriers and her distinguished service record. As she reviewed her prepared remarks, Admiral Chen reflected on the path that had brought her to this moment. After graduating from SEAL training, she had been assigned to SEAL Team 7, where initial skepticism from some team members had quickly given way to respect earned through performance in training and combat operations. Her first deployment had been to Afghanistan, where her unit conducted direct action missions against high-value targets. Admiral Chen's skills as a sniper had proven invaluable in the complex urban and mountainous terrain, and her ability to remain calm under fire had saved lives on multiple occasions. During one particularly intense firefight, she had eliminated 3 enemy combatants with precision shots that allowed her wounded teammates to be evacuated safely. The tattoo on her shoulder, a sniper's crosshairs with her call sign Phantom inscribed below, commemorated that deployment and the 17 confirmed kills she had achieved during 6 months of combat operations. It was a marking that few people had seen, hidden beneath her uniform sleeve, but it represented the deadly skills that had made her legendary among special operations forces. Her second deployment had been to Iraq, where she had led a joint special operations team in counterterrorism missions. Her tactical brilliance and calm leadership under pressure had resulted in the capture of several high-value targets and the disruption of multiple terrorist networks. During one operation, her team had rescued 12 hostages from a heavily fortified compound, an achievement that earned her the Navy Cross for extraordinary heroism. As her reputation grew, Admiral Chen had been selected for increasingly challenging assignments. She had served as a training instructor, passing on her knowledge and experience to new generations of SEALs. She had completed advanced education programs at the Naval War College, developing expertise in strategic planning and international security. She had commanded SEAL teams, special operations task forces, and eventually entire special operations commands. Throughout her career, she had never forgotten the lessons learned during those early days of training. Performance mattered more than prejudice. Teams succeeded when individual excellence was combined with mutual respect and shared commitment. Leadership meant taking responsibility for outcomes, whether successful or unsuccessful. But perhaps most importantly, she had learned that breaking barriers required not just individual achievement, but the patient work of proving that excellence had no gender. Every mission, every assignment, every promotion had been an opportunity to demonstrate that women belonged in special operations, not because standards should be lowered, but because some women could meet the highest standards when given the opportunity. Now, as she prepared to address the graduating class, Admiral Chen saw among the candidates several women who had followed the path she had helped create. The program she had entered as the only woman in her class now regularly included multiple female candidates, and while the attrition rate remained high for everyone, women were no longer considered experimental additions to special operations forces. The ceremony began with the presentation of colors and the national anthem. Admiral Chen stood at attention with the other dignitaries, but her eyes were on the graduates, young men and women who had endured the same challenges she remembered so well. She could see in their faces the quiet confidence that came from knowing they had been tested at the limits of human endurance and had emerged stronger. Master Chief Davidson, now nearing retirement after 30 years of service, served as the ceremony's master of ceremonies. He had personally overseen the training of over 800 SEAL candidates during his career, and Admiral Chen held special significance for him as one of his most successful graduates. "Ladies and gentlemen," Davidson announced, "it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker." Admiral Sarah Chen began her Navy career as an enlisted sailor, with a dream that many people thought was impossible. Through determination, skill, and unwavering commitment to excellence, she not only achieved that dream but exceeded it in ways that have inspired countless others. She has served with distinction in multiple combat deployments, commanded special operations forces at every level, and has devoted her career to advancing the capabilities and effectiveness of our special operations community. Please welcome Admiral Sarah Chen. As Admiral Chen stepped to the podium, she was struck by the composition of the audience. The graduating class included 4 women among the 18 total graduates, a percentage that would have been unimaginable when she began her career. More importantly, she could see in the faces of both male and female graduates the same sense of mutual respect and shared achievement that she remembered from her own graduation day. "Graduates, families, distinguished guests," she began. "22 years ago, I stood where you are standing now, about to receive the SEAL Trident that represents membership in one of the world's most elite military organizations. Like you, I had endured months of training designed to test the limits of human performance. Like you, I had discovered capabilities within myself that I had never known existed. And like you, I was both proud of what I had achieved and humbled by the responsibility that came with wearing this insignia. She paused, looking directly at the graduating class. Today, I want to talk to you about what comes next. This ceremony marks the end of one journey, but it is the beginning of another. The skills you have learned, the mental toughness you have developed, and the teamwork capabilities you have demonstrated will now be tested in real-world operations, where the stakes are measured not in training scores, but in lives, your own, your teammates, and those of the people you are sworn to protect. Admiral Chen moved away from the podium, walking closer to the graduates as she continued. Some of you will deploy to combat zones where your training will be put to the ultimate test. Others will find yourselves in situations you never imagined when you began this journey. All of you will face moments when you must choose between what is easy and what is right, between what is comfortable and what is necessary. She stopped in front of the female graduates, making eye contact with each of them. To the women in this graduating class, I want you to know that you are here because you earned it, not because standards were lowered, not because quotas needed to be filled, but because you demonstrated the same exceptional capabilities that define every member of our community. Your gender makes you pioneers, but your performance makes you SEALs. Admiral Chen then addressed the entire class again. But I also want all of you to understand that being a SEAL is not about individual glory or personal achievement. It is about service to something greater than yourself. It is about standing ready to go where others cannot go, to do what others cannot do, and to sacrifice whatever is necessary to protect our nation and our way of life. She returned to the podium, her voice taking on a more serious tone. During my career, I have had the honor of serving alongside some of the finest warriors our nation has ever produced. I have seen ordinary people perform extraordinary acts of courage and selflessness. I have witnessed the power of teams that trust each other completely and work together flawlessly under the most challenging conditions imaginable. Admiral Chen's voice carried the weight of decades of experience as she continued. I have also seen the cost of this service. I have attended funerals for teammates who made the ultimate sacrifice. I have watched families struggle with the burdens of military life. I have seen the physical and emotional toll that Special Operations Service can take on even the strongest individuals. The ceremony ground was completely silent as graduates and audience members absorbed her words. I tell you this not to discourage you, but to ensure you understand the full meaning of the commitment you are making today. When you pin on that trident, you are joining a brotherhood and sisterhood that extends back generations and forward into the future. You become part of a legacy built on the courage, sacrifice, and dedication of thousands of men and women who have worn this insignia before you. Admiral Chen reached into her pocket and withdrew a small box. Today, I want to share something with you that represents both where I came from and what I hope for your futures. She opened the box to reveal her original SEAL Trident, the one she had received 22 years earlier. Unlike the pristine new insignia that would be presented to the graduates, this one showed the wear of decades of service. This trident has been with me through 4 combat deployments, countless training exercises, and every assignment of my career. It has seen me succeed and fail, lead and follow, triumph and struggle. It has been my reminder that being a SEAL is not about perfection, but about the relentless pursuit of excellence in service to others. She held the insignia up so the entire audience could see it. But today, I am retiring this trident. It has served its purpose, just as each of you will serve your purpose in the years ahead. What matters is not the insignia itself, but what it represents. The commitment to stand ready, to serve selflessly, and to never give up in the face of any challenge. Admiral Chen closed the box and looked directly at the graduating class. You have already proven that you have what it takes to earn the right to wear this insignia. Now you must prove that you deserve to keep it. That proof will come not in one dramatic moment, but in thousands of small decisions, countless hours of training, and a lifetime commitment to the values that define our community. As the formal presentation of tridents began, Admiral Chen moved through the audience, speaking quietly with family members and offering personal congratulations to each graduate. When she reached the female graduates, she spent extra time with each one, sharing experiences and offering guidance that only someone who had walked the same path could provide. Remember, she told Lieutenant Chen, no relation, but sharing the same surname, you represent not just yourself, but everyone who will follow after you. Make choices you can be proud of. Lead by example. And never forget that you earned your place here through excellence. As the ceremony concluded, and families began to mingle with the new graduates, Admiral Chen found herself approached by a young reporter who had been covering the event. Admiral Chen, the reporter said, looking back on your career, what do you consider your greatest achievement? Admiral Chen smiled as she watched the new graduates celebrating with their families, the men and women together sharing in their common accomplishment. It's not what I achieved, she replied. It's what we made possible. When I graduated from this program, I was breaking new ground simply by being here. Today, these women are graduating not as pioneers or exceptions, but as SEALs. They are here because they belong here, because they have proven themselves worthy of joining this community. She paused, watching as one of the new female graduates embraced her parents. My greatest achievement is that someday, women graduating from this program won't be noteworthy at all. They'll just be SEALs who happen to be women, judged entirely on their capabilities and their service. That's the world I've been working to create throughout my career. As the day concluded and Admiral Chen prepared to leave the ceremony, Master Chief Davidson approached her one final time. Admiral, he said, I've been thinking about something you said during training, way back when you were just another candidate trying to prove herself. What's that, Master Chief? You said you preferred to be underestimated. Looking at everything you've accomplished, I think people learn to stop underestimating you pretty quickly. Admiral Chen laughed. Actually, Master Chief, I've learned that being underestimated can be an advantage throughout your entire career. People focus so much on what they think you can't do that they miss what you're actually doing. By the time they realize their mistake, you've already achieved your objective. Davidson nodded thoughtfully. That's probably good advice for this new generation of SEALs. As Admiral Chen walked toward her car, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from that first day of training to this moment. The tattoo hidden beneath her dress uniform sleeve served as a permanent reminder of the crucible that had forged her into the leader she had become. But more than that, it represented the price of excellence and the responsibility that came with breaking barriers. The young woman who had been told she should consider the medical corps instead of special operations had risen to become one of the Navy's most senior admirals. The recruit who had been the only woman in her training class had helped create a pipeline that would produce thousands more female special operations personnel. The sniper who had earned her reputation in combat had become a strategic leader whose influence extended far beyond individual missions. But perhaps most importantly, she had proven that excellence truly had no gender, that when barriers were removed and standards maintained, some individuals would always rise to meet the highest expectations, regardless of what others thought was possible. As she drove away from the ceremony, Admiral Chen smiled at the thought of what these new graduates would accomplish in their own careers. Some would serve quietly and excellently for their full careers. Others might break new barriers of their own. All of them would carry forward the traditions and values that made Special Operations Forces the elite military units they were. The future was full of possibilities, and Admiral Chen was confident that it was in very capable hands.